You know the show, the RR Show. You know the host. It's me, Vince. And you know what's going to happen. We're about to hear a collection of stories from a subreddit. Sometimes we do little hodgepodge stuff, but today it's all going to come from r/PettyRevenge. So let's get into it right now. Our first story comes from Demonic Cheetah. Mock me for not going to a strip club? Wait until your wife finds out. A bit of a backstory, but it makes the revenge even better. I've worked in software sales for the bulk of my career. About 10 years ago, my company was hosting its annual user conference in Las Vegas. As a sales guy, I pretty much had carte blanche on expenses as long as it involved clients. Expensive dinners, drinks, tables at clubs, etc. The only unbreakable rule was we couldn't pay for strippers. Having been in the industry long enough, I realized what guys would do to get around this. It was common for them to explain to a manager at a strip club, and then they would have the girls' tips added to the bottle service. Even with that in place, I never thought it was a good idea to play that game. Nor did I think it was a good idea to go to a strip club with clients. It was never a good look in my mind. I was roughly 27 or 28 at the time, and one of the older guys, late 40s, Jim, was the typical sleazy sales guy. He would tell half-truths to prospects, overcharge them, oversell, etc. The type that creates a hassle for the services and implementation teams, but he still got paid, so he didn't care. And when he got to Vegas, Jim would go crazy entertaining clients and himself. Sometimes he would go to dinner by himself, but say some senior VP was with him, and he also abused the stripper loophole. One of the reasons he tried to get a group to the strip club each night was that he had a very conservative wife. She made the kids go to a local Christian school, and the family went to church every Sunday. She hated the annual trips to Vegas to the point he would tell stories that he wasn't allowed to bring his suitcase in the house. He had to leave it in the garage where the laundry room was, and she would wash his clothes and then sanitize the washing machine. On the last night of the conference, he organized a shuttle from one of the big strip clubs to pick up a group. There were some open seats he was trying to fill to meet the minimum requirement for free entry to the club. Jim saw me speaking to a client and invited us. I declined. I stated, I don't want to go because I don't think it's professional. After mocking me, he left. I bought my client another round, and we joked about the douchebag. Then I was on my own, and decided to walk the strip a bit and head to bed early due to an early morning flight. If you've ever been to Vegas, there are people on the sidewalk handing out cards that are essentially ads for the escorts. They legally can't speak to you, so they slap the cards on their hands to get your attention. After a few drinks, I started taking a few. Fast forward to the next morning when Jim and I were sitting in the airport waiting for our flight. He had stayed out to 3 or 4 a.m. and was a complete mess and totally hungover. I was 100% enjoying his condition. At one point, he went to the bathroom and asked me to watch his bag. When he was out of sight, I added those escort cards in his bag. When his wife went to do her laundry routine when he got home, she was not happy. She didn't believe in divorce, but they were suddenly going to church 3 times a week, had a weekly counseling session with their pastor. This also led to Jim dropping out of his weekly golf league. He was telling us all the story at the office looking for sympathy, and he swore he never took those cards, but he couldn't remember because he was so drunk. Our second story in this Petty Revenge episode comes from Sweet Speech 9054. Take my credit, lose your credibility. I work in research and development in my company. I usually don't get involved too much in deals like suppliers and manufacturers. That's a different department. But my team and I have been working on a project that made it more necessary for me to get involved in the finer details of a big manufacturing deal. We are wrapping up the project, and I found out that someone high up in the manufacturing department has been meeting with the other company without me and was going to basically take credit for all my team's work. It isn't a huge deal for me, but it could affect bonuses for some of my employees. So today I talked to the COO, who told me that they recognized that my team did the work and deserved credit, but that it was going to be easier at this point to just let the other person handle the deal. I was okay with this because we got the credit, but it was a load off my plate, and I have other things to do. But then this prick has the nerve to ask where we can take the clients for lunch. He didn't say who, but I knew they were coming to town, so it wasn't hard to figure out. So I told him about a new restaurant that is opening. It should be a nice place for them after a long flight. The restaurant? Twin Peaks. If you don't know, it's kind of like a Hooters ripoff. After lunch, they came by the office and made sure to say hi. They were clearly not impressed, and their CTO even made a comment that he wished I was handling things because he didn't like the other guy's style. They were clearly uncomfortable with his choice in restaurant, and he had some glares for me as well. Our third story comes from user Kerbin. Try and belittle me for doing my job? I'll show you how small you are. So this story takes place many years ago. In the big box home improvement store I worked at, I truly made myself a jack of all trades and also spent time helping out as a cashier. Credit card culture back then wasn't like it is today. No slick point of sale systems that you can just tap your payment against, and smartphones didn't even exist yet. You just handed your credit card to the cashier, they swiped it on their keyboard, and after you signed the slip, you got your credit card back. At this point, it was technically expected that the cashier would compare the signature to verify that you were dealing with the authorized user. I was always a little bit more above and beyond and was concerned about security and actually wrote CID on my own cards and was actually more than happy to display my ID at the time to prevent myself from being taken advantage of, so I gave that same consideration to my customers. On a particular day, a customer decided to be a smartass. I was doing my check on the signatures. Now, this check never took a long time. It's basically 3 to 5 seconds of looking for, characteristics. Big loops here, squiggles there, crosses the T in the same ways, and a few quick basics. You see a few matching characteristics, call it a day, move on. But this dude bro was not happy with this. So he decides to throw out the line, "What do you think you are, some kind of cop?" Now, being the quick-witted smartass that I am, I instantly responded with, "Nope, quit the academy after my dad got killed in the line of duty." Finished checking the signature for a second or two, handed the card and the receipt back to the customer, and wished him a nice day, enjoying the red-faced expression as he silently sulked out of the store. Now, I started ringing up the next customer, and the rest of my line was silent. And as soon as I saw the guy clear the doors and they closed behind him in my peripheral, I let the rest of the line know. Dad's a mechanic, he's fine, we had lunch last week. And I got a few relief breaths and the occasional chuckle. Nothing too serious, but it still felt good making the guy regret his obnoxiousness. Our fourth story in this r/PettyRevenge episode is from user Cat of the Woods. As a person who struggles with vision and hearing due to serious illness, I had no problem with being a jerk to that jerk behind the counter at Chipotle. I am a brain tumor survivor, hence why I lost most of my hearing. I also have a genetic condition which leads to worsening vision across the lifespan, and I am now entering the advanced stages at 30 years old. It's not easy for me to navigate society. I bump into things, I need to be super close to read stuff, and I need people to speak up. I walked into Chipotle 2 months ago since my stomach was feeling really good. I go in and I see some notes on their menu written on a sheet of paper. I ask the guy behind the counter what it said, and he sighs, tilts his head to the side and says, "You can't read or something?" I said I was visually impaired as calmly and as short as I could. He tells me that they're out of steak and chicken. I didn't understand him at first, so I asked if he could say it again as I have hearing problems. He spoke softer than most people, I felt, and he borderline yells at me. There was nobody else in the shop but me. We go down the line, I pick my stuff, and get to the end. He says something to me and I couldn't quite understand him. I asked him patiently to repeat, and he looks at his coworker shaking his head, while his coworker looked at him all confused. He starts borderline yelling at me again, saying, "Dude, go get some new ears. I said you have to swipe your card. The chip doesn't work." I got upset and smiled, asking, "Okay, how much is it?" He says $17.87 or something like that. I then tell him, "Okay, great. Take this $17.87 worth of food and go F yourself with it." I walked away out the door and he starts yelling at me to come back to pay for it. I respond by saying, "I can't hear you, dude." Before I lost so much of my vision and hearing, I myself worked in food service in college and a little after. I delivered sushi, served food at the campus buffet, and waited tables at IHOP. There was absolutely zero need to be like that. Zero. He didn't have to speak up that much more. I'm not legally deaf. And what I was asking was really not a big deal considering what else other people do. I was nice as I could be and really tried my best. In the end, though, it likely didn't matter that food got tossed out, or maybe he enjoyed it or somebody else did. I left the frustration energy of the moment with him and not me. As a person of disability, ignorance and discrimination to me is the literal worst part about being disabled. Society would rather decide where you can and cannot exist amongst those around you instead of integrating with you and allowing you to share with others your own contributions. Our final story comes from Goku Gasapi. I turned Air's incompetence into profit. A couple of years ago, I bought my first house. Excited to settle in, the next task was signing up for internet. Little did I know I was about to face one of the most frustrating customer service experiences of my life. Turns out, for all new builds in the area, there's some bizarre system in place that forces you to sign up with a specific provider. Let's call them Air, a company that not only handles internet, but also connects you to the grid. Seemed like a good deal, right? Wrong. When I called Air, they were super eager to sign me up. I thought I was in the clear, but about a week later, I received an email telling me my order had been canceled. Turns out, this is commonplace for them. They couldn't be bothered to file the extra paperwork for new builds. So I called again and again. I was canceled. Going back and forth with them for a month, I was livid. I just wanted internet. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I spotted an offer. When you sign up with Air, you get a free Apple TV box. I figured I had nothing to lose at this point, so I gave it another shot. A few days later, Apple TV box arrived. And of course, my order was canceled again. But something clicked. If they were going to keep offering free Apple TV boxes only to cancel my orders, why not turn this broken system to my advantage? Surviving on a mobile hotspot and fed up with their incompetence, I decided to exploit their awful process. I repeatedly signed up with Air, using their own loophole to my benefit. By the end of the month, I had accumulated 10 Apple TV boxes. At this point, I'd gotten my revenge, but I still had no internet. So I walked into their physical store, half explained the situation to a bewildered employee, and within 2 minutes, the store manager was yelling down the phone to their network center. Miraculously, I had internet set up the very next day. As for the Apple TV boxes, I sold them all for a nice $1,600, turning my frustration into profit. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. Thank you to my producer, Kevin, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.